And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! 145!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Look at this!
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good early morning from Florida. You are looking live at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where the Falcon 9 is on the pad getting ready to launch the Galaxy 37 mission. Love seeing all the 5x5s in chat, which means you can hear me. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host through the proceedings tonight, hopefully leading up to a launch. Just about a minute ago, we got the go for launch from SpaceX Mission Control. So let's get the go for launch as well from everybody that will be joining me on comms. Starting with, out in the field, Julia Bergeron. How's it going, Julia?
Good evening, Sawyer, and good evening to those who are joining us. It is going well now that the clouds have cleared out and I can see a full moon and a rocket on the pad.
Fantastic. And also joining us for studio comms tonight is Lon Seidman. How's it going, Lon?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on. It's exciting. I've been watching you guys for years, and it's great to be a part. And we had a great time last night, too, with my beach scenes there. So we're really enjoying it. So looking forward to being a part of the stream tonight.
Yeah, for those who don't know, he was the one providing the slightly southern view of the Wallops launch last night of Antares. It was spectacularly done, by the way.
I got lucky. The camera was not cooperating, and I forgot how to turn on the manual focus, but it seemed to get its act together right in the nick of time. So it was a lot of fun. And I live up in Connecticut, so it was unusual to see a real rocket launch, pretty much from my hometown. So it was amazing. The timing couldn't have been better. So hopefully we see more up here.
Yep, and as mentioned in the back channel, you're north of the launch pad, not south. So just wanted to clarify that.
North, south, it's all good.
And pulling the levers, pushing all the buttons tonight is Mr. Patrick Colhoun. So we have a great crew for you here tonight. And a reminder, as always, if you have any questions for us, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. Now, let's start off with the mission tonight with Galaxy 37. We're going to bring back an old favorite of the Great C-band reallocation. Lon, can you talk a little bit about what the purpose of this satellite is?
Yes, well, there's two purposes. So there's actually two payloads on the satellite, if you will. So you've got one that's designed for telecommunications and for TV, the usual kinds of geosynchronous satellite activities. And then the other is to accommodate this transition of moving people on the ground who are communicating with satellites off of a block of the C-band so that they can have more room for 5G. And it's been, I think, a 3 or 4 year effort that the FCC has been undertaking. I'm guessing to some degree they're reimbursing people for changing out their ground equipment and changing satellites in orbit so that we can get better 5G here on the ground. So that's part of what this satellite will be doing when it reaches its final destination.
Yeah, this is one of the 6 different satellites that they need to launch to upgrade, and they have until December 5th, 2023 if they want to get some of that money from the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, which is behind all of this.
Yeah, and around my area, we got one of those towers spun up, and what's funny is when you're on your phone, at least on Verizon, it'll say that it's on the ultra wideband, which initially meant that you were getting that millimeter wave gigabit kind of communication. And it was funny because I was walking around at a friend's house. And I was like, wow, my ultra wideband is working inside. What's going on with that? Well, it turns out his tower right next door got spun up on the C-band. So you'll see that on your phone. Even if you're not on millimeter wave, you'll be on the ultra wideband off of a tower.
There you go. Now, in terms of what you see on your screen right there with the booster, Stephanie here asking, how many flights has this booster flown? Julia, do you mind giving us a breakdown of what booster we've got here at least?
I can do that. Tonight we have booster 1077, and this will be the 6th flight of that booster. On that note, it started with Crew 5, and then we had a GPS 6, or GPS 3-6, Inmarsat I-6, a Starlink, and where else? Oh, and the previous one to this launch was CRS-28. Our recovery vessel for this launch is Just Read the Instructions, and they are based downrange. We are going basically eastward today. They are based downrange 638 kilometers, with fairings being about 760 kilometers downrange.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know the question also asks about if the fairings are being reflown, they don't publish that data typically until just before launch or during the launch even sometimes. So once we know, we'll let you know.
I'll have to look and see how dirty they look.
That too, yes. And they do mix and match. So it's not like both fairing halves are guaranteed to have flown the same number of times. We've seen one that flew, I believe, with a 4-time and an 8-time flown fairing. Let's see. Let's take a moment and thank some people who've already showed their support even while we were waiting through the delays. Because keep in mind, the window originally opened at 12:15, which was their original T0 target, and that got pushed back to 12:45, and now finally 1 a.m. Eastern. So, Bideford, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Dave, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Coco Cats, thank you as well for gifting a Red Team membership. Brandon K, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. If you got any of these gifted memberships, please send them a thank you. Blushy Boy, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. And Velma D, thank you for becoming a Padrat member. Now, we do also have some questions in the support queue here. Here's one from Musical Wolves, saying they got their full stack plushie, which, congratulations, and asking, Julia, I'll push this one to you. Is there likely a lunar jellyfish effect tonight?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Usually we're asking about a sunset jellyfish, but as I said, we have a very full moon tonight, and it is a possibility with the second stage to possibly catch that and get a little bit extra illumination on the plumes. So I can't wait to see.
Exactly. So for those who don't know what the jellyfish is, that's when the light, typically during sunrise or sunset, illuminates as the rocket basically passes near the curvature of the Earth, so near the transition from day to night. And you'll get this cool effect where it looks like the top of a jellyfish. That can also be done if it's a clear night by the moon. So, it's something that we will definitely keep an eye out for. Also, Musical Wolf saying, will the satellite experience 5G? LOL.
It might. You know what's interesting? I'm an amateur radio operator, and I always thought, a new one, so just about a year, and I always thought that it was really hard to communicate with a satellite, that you would need some dish large enough to be able to get that signal, aimed and focused as well as you could. And one of the things that I've been experimenting with is using some of the repeaters on the International Space Station. And they have basically a text repeater that you can point just a little radio, 7-watt radio, with its little rubber duck antenna, and you can get a packet up to the space station. Pretty amazing. So, these the chances of having interference on the ground, even from just a little antenna, are there, which is why the FCC is trying to move everybody off of these frequencies and get filters installed to make sure that nobody's going to step on any of that 5G traffic.
Exactly. Let's see. Got a few people asking this question, and I don't know if we know the answer to it yet. Asking, will the second stage have a stubby nozzle or a normal nozzle?
Oh,
Personal question.
For those who don't know, SpaceX now has two different versions of their Merlin vacuum engine. One, which is a longer engine bell, and one we've been calling the stubby engine. So we will obviously see once we get to the second stage separation, but there's been that whole debate of, is the stubby engine ugly or ugly? I mean, good looking, but yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of fans of Stubby in the chat, though.
Oh my gosh,
always
here
a
we go
fan
again.
favorite. Nope, just admit it. It's a fan favorite.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. And I do just want to point out, we have someone with the username Lunar Jellyfish who said, "You rang." That was just too perfect.
We'll see one.
So a couple more questions here about this satellite. So, Lon, you mentioned that it's two different kind of payloads in one.
Right.
Who was it who asked it? Pure Cosmos asking about the mass of the satellite, and I believe we have some pictures of it to go along with this.
Yeah, I don't know if they can come up on air here. Yeah, there they are. So it looks to be rather large. And I guess this is like a standard bus that this manufacturer makes. So, it's something where you kind of, I guess, plug in the components that you want to get onto the satellite. And one of the things I've been thinking about in the sense that these satellites tend to stay in operation for a decade or more is how much the industry changes from the time that they launch to the time that they are taken out of service. And if you think about 10 years ago, we weren't doing live streams for these kinds of launches. You could, but it wasn't to the point that it is at today. So much video is getting transmitted over fiber optics on the ground, right? The whole industry changes, and I'm curious what this satellite will experience in its lifespan, how much of its life will change, and also, though, maybe what is on board the satellite to allow it to operate differently that some of its predecessors couldn't, right? So that's all stuff I'm sure they are keeping kind of a corporate secret, but it's going to be interesting to see how these manufacturers are adapting, especially as we're seeing some frequency being shaved off for terrestrial uses.
Good point. And for those who don't know, this is technically Galaxy 37/Horizons 4. So that's why we just call it Galaxy 37, because that's the main C-band payload. But the other half of it is Horizons 4. And to finish answering that question, I don't think we've ever been given an exact weight, but if we use previous satellites for reference and things like that, it's roughly 3,500 kilograms.
They don't give much on these satellites, do they? It seems to be pretty quiet.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's see. Bunch more support coming in here. Moldy Space, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Chris W, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. No C, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership as well. ETC, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. Capcom and above get access to our Discord, so hopefully we'll get to see you there. Let's see, here's a question from Fabian asking, what happened to the two oil rig platforms that SpaceX was modifying? And says Argentina says hi. Well, hello back to Argentina. Does anyone want to take that?
Well, what happened to them? From what I had seen from Jack, they're being scrapped, if I'm not mistaken, and
You're
that
right.
means SpaceX is just not pursuing that as an option right now. Whether that means they're not doing point-to-point transit or considering at-sea landings, I'm assuming both. Means they're probably just going to, for now, until Starship is proven, perhaps focus on land landings, because trust me, y'all, you don't want to try and land that on a drone ship. So I guess we're going to work on landing on land first.
Yeah,
That's one of the
don't. Oh, no, I was just going to say, I hope Chris B doesn't hear you talking about no point-to-point. What were you going to say, Lon?
Probably in the future. Okay, Chris, in the future, but let's focus on the now and getting the now right.
It's one of the things I love about SpaceX is that they try so many different things, and a lot of it are very expensive and very bulky things, but they try, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and I think it's been a lot of fun. I've been following SpaceX since kind of the beginnings of their orbital program. I remember going down to visit them during the last space shuttle launch when they were taking media tours through there, and just the scrappy nature of how they got to where they are. And I think they got there by a lot of trial and error. And sometimes you got to scrap a big oil rig to learn how to do something correctly. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot more of that in the future.
Yeah, those oil rigs were meant to be kind of floating platforms to be used for launches and landings, particularly for Starship. So just for those who are unaware.
In the same breath, we could say, well, gee, what happened to Blue Origin's Jacqueline, right? Things change.
Mm-hmm.
True. Now if we look at the rocket here for just a second, you can see that kind of smokiness coming off to the side. What is that, Lon?
Well, that is the fuel. Basically, when they're fueling up these rockets, and we actually, one of the launches I went to, we got a FLIR camera for the shuttle. And you have to really get this fuel compressed into liquid form to get the most out of it. And in doing so, you get a lot of cold going out up that fuel tank, and you get a lot of condensation. So we're seeing that fuel just condensing off the side of the rocket and interacting with the Florida humidity, of which we don't have any in Connecticut tonight. It's beautiful here. But down there, at this time of year, it gets rather humid. So you're basically creating like a little cloud. As you're fueling up the rocket there, and it'll continue throughout the fueling process here.
Exactly, and something fun will also happen in about 2 minutes, but we'll save that for once we get there. Let's see. Here's a question from the Law. Thank you as well for the support, saying, other than Artemis, what is one NASA space exploration mission you're excited for launching in the next 10 years? Julia, start with you. Any mission you're really excited for exploration-wise?
Oh my goodness. I get excited about anything that has to do with Mars. And I'm still honestly excited about what we're seeing come from James Webb. So I can't honestly say I have anything in the future that I'm especially looking to, but I'm enjoying what we're seeing now.
Lon, what about you?
So I think the Mars sample return mission is pretty exciting to me because I interviewed one of the communications folks from JPL a few years ago about communicating with the Red Planet, and he was talking about the excitement that the engineering teams have on the sample return mission, because it's almost a purely engineering mission to get this thing to the planet, get it to pick up those pieces of samples and get them into a rocket and shoot them back to Earth. And it's kind of a different mission because it doesn't have to balance the science as much as it does the engineering in usual missions. So that one's pretty exciting to me. The other thing I'm looking forward to, even though this is kind of attached to the Artemis one, is that the whole process of fueling for Artemis 3, I think is going to be really exciting to watch, because you're going to have multiple Starship cycles. Just getting that fueling thing down is going to be pretty amazing, I think, especially for those of us that like to watch from Cape Canaveral. We're going to see a lot of stuff going on at KSC for that.
And see, I've got two that I'm really torn between at the moment, because Psyche, supposed to launch in October, is also a really cool mission. And at the same time, I just saw a picture of someone at JPL with Europa Clipper being worked on. I mean, the fact to be able to study one of those moons out there, I think that's exciting, something that we're not used to seeing. You know, we study Mars and the moon and a bunch of asteroids now, but to study, what are the moons of one of the gas giants? Oh, so cool.
Maybe
you know what else is cool?
Living in there too, right?
It's a potential.
Yeah.
But you know what else is cool?
What's that?
The best vent. And in about
up?
5 seconds or so, we should be seeing what we jokingly call the best vent, which is the T-minus 20-minute vent. And there it goes, right on schedule. That is used to kind of purge out the lines that are being used to fill the rocket with its fuel. And it uses, I believe, liquid nitrogen to clear all of that out. And that will continue. You'll see this probably for approximately 4 minutes or so, following which we will know that the second stage LOX load has begun. That is the liquid oxygen, or as we've been calling it, LOXygen. And there we go. Just like that, we have confirmation that Stage 2 RP-1 load is complete. That is rocket propellant 1. That is rocket-grade kerosene. So it's the RP-1 and the Loxygen. So yeah, it's purging the lines between the two fills at the moment. And sorry, I had to point it out. Point it out every time, but I just love it. All right, let's see what else we've got here for you. I've got a message here for you, Lon, from Mark, saying, loved Lon's video from the Antares launch and hope to see more of those downrange shots. So passing that along to you. Also asking
every time. I'm up for it. Absolutely.
Also asking, why can't Falcon 9's second stages be recovered by a parachute? And go hashtag Team Stubby.
That's right, Team Stubby. Hey, I do want to say something. I think, I showed the video to a bunch of my friends that are not as into space as we all are. And they're like, why are they so excited? I said, well, because they're not used to seeing rockets from the side. Because usually from the vantage points we get in Florida and California and other places, you're watching the rocket go away from you. So that was what made it a lot of fun for everybody. Yeah, it was awesome last night. Totally cool. So, and I'm guessing the reason why you can't recover the Falcon 9 stage with a parachute is that it's probably too heavy for that, right?
Yeah, I know they've discussed it in multiple different ways, including at one point, I believe there was a bouncy castle idea.
Wow. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not bouncy castle.
It worked for the Mars rovers,
I'd
right?
imagine you're going to need a combination of thrusters as well as a parachute, and I think it all comes down to, at this point, don't mess with what's already working and what's already certified. And once you start playing with that second stage and adding something to it to make it recoverable, then you may have to look at new certifications.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the question. I thought we were talking about the first stage, not the second one. Yeah, and I think it's just not enough of fuel really to get it where you need it to be. And yeah, I remember there was these old graphics from the early days where they were showing different examples of how they might recover that second stage, but they had a hard time even catching the fairing halves as they floated down. And I guess the saltwater interaction with the engines is probably not good for them either, right?
Yeah, it's not great for it, that's for sure. And there are companies out there that have plans involving inflatable heat shields and parachutes to try and recover a second stage. So there are definitely other ways that are being proposed out there, just not by SpaceX at the moment, because their other thought also is eventually they're going to switch away from the Falcon family and move everything to Starship, in which both stages are reusable.
Right, and they grab it and that's it. And Rocket Lab is doing some parachute recoveries with helicopters. I don't know if you've seen some of those. That was pretty crazy to watch that. But
they tried it and then realized it didn't quite work. But hey, their last mission, they recovered it out of the ocean too. Right,
and I can't help but think, like, what about the saltwater? How are they going to mitigate that?
Well, I think they're going to be the pioneer in that, because I think they've realized if you get it out of there fast enough and hose it down, there might not be as much damage as we think.
Right.
I mean, yeah, that was out of the water a little over an hour after it splashed down. But then again, also go back to, mark your bingo cards, shuttle, then you'll remember the solid rocket boosters that would be brought back into port that floated, were attached to Freedom Star and Liberty Star, and then brought back through the locks at the Cape.
Right.
And you'll notice that our favorite vent, by the way, I apologize for interrupting there, has stopped, which means that Stage 2 LOX load has started, and we have confirmation of that. Apologies for interrupting you there, Lon. Just wanted to get that out.
Yeah, that's good. That's the important thing. People are here to see that.
Hey, Sawyer.
Yes, Julia.
So, who might be able to see this launch besides the folks of the Space Coast? Would you be able to perhaps provide an answer to that?
I can definitely provide an answer to that. I believe we have a map that shows the trajectory. So, a reminder that this launch is to Geostationary Transfer Orbit, or GTO. Pretty much all launches that go to geostationary end up going due east. As you can see on the projected map there, that is the due easterly trajectory, which means that pretty much anyone along the eastern coast of Florida, north and south, should be able to get a view of it, although it does have that slight southward tilt to it, but you should be able to get a good view all along the Florida coastline and maybe a little bit north of that. But otherwise, for sure, places further south like West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami should get good views of that.
But not Connecticut.
Unfortunately, no. There's very few launches that go northeast, and pretty much all of them, for the most part, from Florida are for the International Space Station.
We were talking offline about maybe getting a little headquarters in the Bahamas.
I would love that. I would love to bring you, some landing views, perhaps. That'd be cool.
Yeah, get lots of footage from the Bahamas.
Especially for the ones that go southeast, yes. Oh my gosh. Also, I see Super Steph saying not Texas. Yeah, unfortunately not Texas. But hey, you've got your own rockets now too, so at least
big
there's
rockets
that.
over there in Texas.
Oh yeah.
Texas-sized rockets.
We have word from SpaceX that the spacecraft is now on internal power. Up until this point, it has been getting power from the ground via the transporter erector, which you see pretty much in the middle of the rocket there, through lines that are hooked up to that. And I believe there's some connectors through the fairing that allows that to happen. So that is now on its own instead using the internal batteries. A couple more support messages here. Riskducer saying thank you for becoming a Padrat member. Brandon K saying you guys are amazing and thank you for the amazing streams each and every time and can't wait to maybe see a jellyfish, hopefully. An anonymous store message here saying gotta get one before they're gone, and that one happens to be a Starship plushie. Yeah, we are down to very, very few of them. It is, last supply call, so if you still want one, now's the time to get it. And Brandon Meyer, thank you for gifting 5 Red Team memberships.
How many launches have you both seen in person? Have you lost count?
I've lost count. Unlike John Krause, I did not keep track, but I can tell you that I've seen over 120 boosters return to port since the COVID days. That doesn't include anything before that, because again, I wasn't counting, but we're up to about 120 return to ports with selfies.
That's quite a few.
Yeah, I know Max just passed his 100th a short time ago, and I am currently at only 44.
Only 44. See, I'm a rookie. I've only got 6 under my belt. Although 7, I was there for. We were talking about this before we started. Also, I was there for the first cargo mission that was aborted.
As was I. It turns out we were both there and didn't know it. But yeah,
it was. Yeah, it was fate, right? But you know what I do is I collect the patches. So up on my wall here, I've got a patch for every mission that I've witnessed in person. And my first night launch was Artemis 1, which was probably the most awesome night launch ever for me. So that was pretty amazing.
That is an awesome first night launch. My first night launch was STS-130. So that was also my first ever launch and my first ever of 2 shuttle launches I saw. So,
and for me, it was what struck me, and this is something I think you can't appreciate until you see one in person, is just how bright they are. Like you see them, lighting up the night sky on a TV image or whatever, but you have to see it to really understand it and appreciate it.
That is true, and we kind of nicknamed them the Midnight Sun. It's that bright.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it with Artemis. I mean, that was my first night launch, and it was 2:00 in the morning. We were all very tired, but it was just remarkable. I took a shot with my GoPro. I locked the exposure in and just let it go. It was just amazing just to see that light up. And my viewers, being very detailed on my YouTube channel, they noticed that there was a camera crew there, and they felt bad for this camera crew because they were shooting an astronaut's reaction to it. They didn't even look at it. Missed the whole thing.
I mean, you certainly couldn't miss hearing and feeling it, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure. Yep.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Anyway, we'll stop waxing poetically
we got
here
work to
about
do
our
here.
launches. Patrick, unfortunately, saying he hasn't seen any, although you've operated quite a bunch, so at least there's that. And Crispy saying he once went over Humpback Bridge too fast, so he's counting that as one.
We'll take it.
I will definitely count that, not just because he's my boss. All right. Here's an interesting question from Steingrava asking, does this one have the gray band? For those who remember from the last Falcon Heavy, and from most Falcon Heavies at this point for that matter, you see this gray band near the interstage. Julia, tonight, is it gray or black?
I don't know that answer because there's a TE in front of the rocket from my perspective. I'm sorry.
That's okay. In theory, it should be black because that is part of the temperature control for the fuel of that upper second stage there. That helps keep it doesn't have to just stay cold or hot, but basically keep it at just the right temperature as it cruises, because Falcon Heavy goes direct to geostationary orbit, as opposed to this mission, which is going to geostationary transfer orbit, which means Falcon does its job, drops it off, and then the satellite does the rest of its own maneuvering to get it into position. Let's see here. I know people are asking about the landing tonight, and we're talking about the launch. Might as well mention the launch entry and landing, which is a shirt that's available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Also has a sweatshirt and a mug. A reminder of exactly how the procedure works. All 9 Merlin engines at launch, the 3 for entry, and the 1 for landing. And these are in the exact configuration, so these are the correct engine numbers even. We made sure we were very detailed in getting that correct. So that is available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And I have seen a few of these people who have been leaving store messages as well, which, remember, as we're live, once you check out, it will say we're live, and you can type in a message. And there you go. See? We are live. I'm scared to see what Patrick would put there, but yes, if you want to get one of the last Starship plushies, hi, Patrick, then, again, shop.nasaspaceflight.com. So while we have a second, I do want to hit some of those store messages. Anonymous here saying hi. Well, hello back to you. Getting the Starship plushie. Jacob saying, Texas-sized rockets shouldn't fit on my bed, but this one will. Thanks for all the great content. Also with the Starship plushie. And finally here from Katie. Oh, I am so grateful for this one. A pun token for Sawyer included with the store purchase of the Mock Diamond shirt. Ooh, thank you. We are now at 6.5 minutes until liftoff. And a reminder, this is the 6th flight of the booster, and the 8th flight and the 10th flight for the 2 fairing halves. Oh, I'm being told by Crispy in the back channel here that store pun tokens count as double.
Ooh, better think of some more puns.
Yeah, I would say our review right now is great. There's one pun for you.
Those are not the clouds.
No, and that is our VAB. And we do have our remote cameras there ready to go with our auto track on it. There's a fantastic view of the last Falcon Heavy for our members that shows the full auto track, how it works, where it thinks it's a... what's it called? Where it thinks it's engines, where it thinks it's rocket, where it thinks it's boosters. It's really cool.
Pretty amazing. Power of AI, huh?
Oh, yeah. Jody, thank you for gifting 1 Red Team membership. Mark Lamb, thank you for the super chat. No message, but it's still greatly appreciated. Gunfog saying, Falcon 9, Cygnus, RTS, or drone ship for landings? I might have missed the answer due to work. Well, this one is the Falcon 9. It is a drone ship landing going onto just read the instructions. Bob is also downrange to support the fairing recovery. And I believe that this will be the 139th consecutive landing since their previous failure. So...
It is remarkable how they went from where they started to where they ended up now. You make it look easy.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Never gets old watching it either.
Oh, no, it does not. It's impressive every time. Let's see. Super Steph with the support for Sheriff Tracy. Nicely done. Mark Lamb with the message. Would you recommend a day launch or a night launch for a first-time in-person launch? That's a good question.
I am team day on that one. I saw the Discovery STS-133 was the first one I saw. And I think just seeing everything go up and in front of you is just amazing. You know, at night it was awesome. You could see, obviously, some detail on the rocket, but you can see just a little bit more on the daytime. But I think, honestly, whatever launch you can get to is the one you should go to.
Yeah, before I give my answer, you look, you can see the clamps that were right underneath the bottom of the fairing there just opened up. That is going to be followed by the TE, the transporter erector, that big metallic structure to the left back of the rocket that you can see here. It's going to lean back ever so slightly, just a couple degrees. Once we actually get to liftoff, then it will throw back completely out of the way so that Falcon 9 can lift off. My answer, I agree. If possible, my first one was a night launch, which was also absolutely amazing. But I think it more matters of if you happen to be there when there is a launch, because you can plan a million different things of contingencies and hotels and planes to go see a launch, and the one you plan on going ends up having something happen to it where it gets delayed till when you leave. Although with the current pace, there's a good chance there's always another one just a few days away.
Right. It's wait a day or two. There's always Disney World if you get stuck.
Has this happened to you?
Yes. I'll tell my kids I went without them.
At this point now, Stage 1 LOX load is complete. That means the first stage booster is completely loaded with its oxidizer of liquid oxygen, or LOXygen. That will be followed by the completion of Stage 1 RP1 load. And then we should also be getting the callouts that the Stage 2 LOX load is complete very shortly as well.
Those fairing caps look flight proven.
They are. I believe I said it was 8 and 9 times, if I recall from earlier. 8 and 10, excuse me, 8 and 10.
They've been around.
Oh, yeah. We are coming up on just about 2 minutes. This point, I do want to remind you that we are going to let you hear everything for the launch itself. We promise we will not mute the rocket audio. It just takes a while from the sound to get from the rocket itself to where our cameras are located a couple miles away.
That's the other thing when you see a rocket launch for the first time, that experience of hearing that sound coming towards you and then feeling it, amazing.
Oh, yeah, it has a physical rumble in your chest to it.
Incredible. I imagine what the Saturn V and sounded like.
Oh, yeah. As we hit 90 seconds to go, a reminder of what you will see coming up shortly. At about T-minus 1 minute, the propellant tanks will be pressurized to flight pressure, and the go should be given to switch to internal power, basically, on the flight computer. It's called Falcon 9 is in startup. T-minus 45 seconds, the launch director should verify go for launch. At T-minus 3 seconds, you'll see a green flash, which will be the Merlin engines igniting with the help of a substance called TTEB. And then, obviously, at T0, we should see liftoff. We have confirmation that all of the propellants are loaded and that Falcon 9 is in startup. So the onboard computers have now taken over control. Passing 45 seconds. Any moment now we should be getting the go, and there it is. We have confirmation. Go for launch.
All right.
I love how you can still see all of the super cooled propellants around it with that kind of eeriness, but we are now 20 seconds away.
I'm sure it never gets old in mission control for them either.
Well, I'm sure as we hit T-minus 10. And again, our clock is to real time. The SpaceX feed is slightly delayed. So in real life, it should be just about lifting off, but on the stream here, you'll see it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. and liftoff of Galaxy 37, continuing the great C-band reallocation, and it has cleared the lighting towers. Alright, Falcon 9 has taken flight. At this point, we should now be passing through Max Q. That is the maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. And yes, absolutely love that rocket launch sound there from it. And we were actually using our camera from KSC, so if you heard these little squealing noise, that was the vehicle assembly building rumbling at just the right resonant frequency to make that cool sound.
Yeah, it was awesome. I went to the one of the Falcon Heavy launches and landings because they both came back to the landing site at Cape Canaveral, and the sonic booms make an amazing sound coming off that building. That metallic echo. It's amazing. It's another thing you just have to experience.
Yep, you can now see the plume expanding as the atmosphere gets thinner. It's not that the engines are moving or spreading out. It's just the atmosphere is a lot less thin and doesn't hold it as tight. So now we're going to be coming up on a few events in quick succession here. We should be expecting momentarily main engine cutoff. That's when the first stage stops firing, followed shortly after that by first and second stage separation, and finally the start of the second stage engine. So let's keep an eye out for that right about now. There we go. There's MECO, main engine cutoff. That appears to be separation. And there we go. There is stage 2 starting up. And here's a couple seconds behind replay so you can see it. You can also see which nozzle it is now on the second stage, which Team Normal, by the way, winning the poll, just saying.
Yep.
And that little strap that just came off, that is a stiffener ring that is used to keep the engine in its bell shape on the way up before it ignites.
So better luck next time for Team Stubby.
Yeah. Lon, look at that view on the left.
Oh my gosh.
What are we seeing?
So it looks to me as though we're seeing the lights from Florida below our returning booster. And what's amazing is when you see one of these night landings and just how crazy it is to see the ground coming up so quickly. We won't see that tonight, but pretty amazing. And it gives you an idea of what a space traveler might see of the night side of Earth when visiting. We really make our presence known here, don't we?
Yes, fairing separation, as you just saw there. So now the Galaxy 37 satellite is exposed to space. Those fairing halves on their 8th and 10th flight will hopefully fly each another time as they parachute down into the water, and Bob, will go and recover them.
And they'll be even dirtier.
Oh, yeah. And I do want to point out, we did, for a second there, see the lunar jellyfish. So for those who are always wondering what that jellyfish looks like, that's what it was.
I think in Florida they're used to seeing the jellyfish at this point, but other parts of the country, get some calls into the authorities about those.
Oh, yeah. We've seen that out in California for the Vandenberg launches, for sure.
And last night with the Antares launch, I was shooting next to a resort that people visit, and the band stopped playing and pointed everybody out the window to look at that rocket going up. It was really cool. Lots of cheers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of good to get the word out about space. It's important.
And we have confirmation for nominal trajectory. So everything proceeding exactly as planned so far. And with that, the first stage has just hit its apogee. That is the highest point in its orbit. So from now, it's no longer going up. Instead, moving its way down towards its landing on Just Read the Instructions. You can see to the left of the clock on the right screen, if that hopefully makes sense, the altitude number on the left there, 115, that is the height of the first stage booster. So you'll see that dropping as it works its way down to land. We should, in less than a minute, we should be seeing the first of the entry burns of the first stage. That will last for about 22 seconds per SpaceX, and that will basically use the fire from the engines to slow itself down, so fighting fire with fire.
That's also how those rockets get so sooty. I'm so focused on the dirt. I just like a well-worn rocket. I think it just speaks to the character, right?
Oh, no, it's fine, because, again, the thing I always like to point out is that the RP-1 is a refined form of kerosene, which is carbon-based. So carbon, you tend to get that soot on it, and that's why all the boosters are so sooty, and I believe the only booster that SpaceX has actually cleaned is the one that's now on display in Hawthorne.
I need a pretty heavy-duty power washer for that one.
Yeah, and there we go. That looks like engine ignition. Oh, that's definitely ignition on the first stage of the entry burn.
Back in the early days, those cameras used to get sooted up like almost immediately, and now it looks like they've been able to solve that problem.
Exactly.
A lot of, it's people don't realize just how much engineering goes into every little thing you don't even think about. How do we keep soot away from the camera?
From
How
what
do
I
we
can
keep
tell,
the camera from not vibrating so much that it can't perform? How do we keep the connection at sea? Oh, Starlink, so that we can have these beautiful views, right?
Right.
Julia, how was the launch for you, by the way?
I was occupied. It was a beautiful sound though, and I have a beautifully empty pad in front of me.
Fantastic. And we have less than a minute left in the second engine burn here, so we should be seeing SECO 1, second engine cutoff 1, in about 30 seconds or so. That is before the first stage landing burn starts. Sometimes it's the other way around. For this particular mission, we will see SECO before we see the landing burn of the first stage. Still such a great view of it in orbit there. And we are standing by for it to shut down the engines. Stage 1 at this point is now transonic.
I see that shutdown and the landing almost back to back here.
Yeah. Shut down supposedly first, then landing. So there's the landing burn.
All right, here we go.
And we have SECO 1 as well on the right side of your screen. On the left, you can see the grid fins that are wiggling back and forth, helping to steer the vehicle towards Just Read the Instructions, which you can now see in view. We have landing leg deploy.
And it looks like
And
stuck the landing.
touchdown. The booster now completing 7. It now has a -7 at its name after this particular flight, and marks, as we mentioned earlier, the 139th consecutive booster landing without any issues, or at least that can then be brought back and reflown.
And sorry, that's all the rest of the fuel they're venting out?
I believe they're venting some of it out, not all of it. And we have confirmation of nominal orbit. So at this point, this is exactly where they want the spacecraft to be. And for those of you who know us, you know that this is DAS's favorite view. The empty pad, as we now take a look at the satellite itself, actually in the vacuum of space.
$52 million worth of satellite right there.
Yeah, it makes lifting 3,500 kilograms look so easy.
That's right. A lot goes into that.
So just so everyone's aware, for the rest of the remaining mission, as mentioned, this will place it into geostationary transfer orbit, meaning the satellite will do all the rest of the work. There is one final second engine burn called SES-2. happening about 26 and a half minutes into the flight. That lasts approximately 1 minute before SECO 2, which is the second stage engine cutoff. That is followed 5 minutes later by the release of Galaxy 37 and Horizons 4.
Do they still use the octo grabber to keep that booster from sliding off the ship?
Yes, they do use Octograbber, and Octograbber can be remotely controlled from the ship. Hawthorne, Cape Canaveral, it's kind of cool that way. It's got GoPros on there so that the operators can see what's going on, and it can buzz out there and secure that booster before the crew even boards to double check.
We never get to see it.
No, we don't get to see Scoots.
Yeah, maybe kind of neat.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, wonder why they don't show us that.
Probably some proprietary industry secret ITAR stuff.
Right.
All right, let's finish through here with a few more messages of support that we got just before and during the launch. Andrew Berg, a message for Jack. The approximate mass of this payload, as we mentioned, 3,500 kilograms, is also equivalent to 598,291 strips of cooked bacon, or 29,661 bananas for scale for Tori and Ring. Keep it up, y'all. That's the math we need.
That's it. But, there's a lot of variables in cooking bacon, right? So, is it crispy or not so crispy?
Why should the U.S. Convert to metric when we can measure in bananas and bacon?
Yeah, I think we should convert to that. I can go for bacon.
Message from Jack saying, getting an item from the store saying, always love the Falcon launches. Can't wait till Starships becomes as commonplace. Same. Keep up the great work. Hashtag team regular nozzle. Getting a patch from the first integrated flight test. With support here for Chris B., also getting something from the store saying point-to-point Australia to USA one day. And grabbing another plushie from the shop there. Tracy, thank you for gifting 2 Red Team memberships. And Musical Wolves. Does Galaxy 37 have a black hole? No, I know the Milky Way is believed to have the black hole in the center. I don't know about this one. It may be nougat in the middle.
I think it's nougat.
Oh, no, that's just the Milky Way. Sorry. And finally, from Bideford here, a $20 super chat saying, another wonderful evening launch. Well, we're glad you joined us for it.
This was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. And I do want to thank everyone that joined us here. Julia, I know you have to head off momentarily, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I had a blast.
Off.
Oh. That's 2 puns I hear.
A blast off? Yeah.
I do not get pun tokens like you, so ha.
I mean, I've been informed here that I still had one left, because I had the double pun token, so... Anyway, also joining us is Lon Seidman. Thank you, Lon.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was great to be part of the stream tonight, and looking forward to helping out wherever I can.
It was a pleasure having you on the cameras last night and on the commentary tonight. Fantastic job. Come on, chat. I think you agree. He did an amazing job for his first time on air with NSF.
I'm a rookie here, so it's intimidating, but we did it. So, but thank you all for the warm welcome.
Congratulations and welcome to the club.
Thank you very much. And I've been coming down to the Cape for many years. I met Chris G probably 10 years ago, and it was been great just to follow the success of NASASpaceflight, and glad to be a part.
Time to crack the champagne bottle on the good ship NSF. She's now commissioned with you on board.
Excellent, thank you.
And, of course, a big thank you to the person behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, pulling all the levers, and making all of this get to your eyes, Mr. Patrick Culhoun. Thank you for operating, and hopefully someone at NSF eventually pronounces your last name correctly. And I am Sawyer Rosenstein, for those who don't know or who didn't see from the beginning. It's been an honor and a pleasure to view this launch with you, and hopefully we will see you back for the next launch. If not, don't forget we have 24/7 views from Starbase in Texas, from McGregor, where they do all the engine testing and occasional Falcon 9 booster testing, and here at the Kennedy Space Center, where we have our cameras like you see now, looking at the VAB, and you can watch all the progress at 39A and the VAB 24/7. Thank you everyone for watching, and in the words of Das, later nerds.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, planet.
Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Say again, SPD off. It's orange! Orange 25! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! What do you think? Put that in the big bag, you know.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?